Heard from John?
When the announcements come, I'll tell you.
Does remakes and stuff.
Yeah. There's people here to see you.
Oh,
You're still hurting.
what people? John was here. Everyone out there?
Heavy crowd for what I think is a non-controversial agenda.
The rezoning will be fairly, at least of what we need in the city council.
Storage.
Yeah.
How's that
It's good. Slow.
Reason is very
But I finally got all the approvals I needed from the owners yesterday. So today I spent all day writing contracts.
Call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Maumelle Planning Commission, May 2018. Missionary, do we have any announcements?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two. Vice Chairman Todd underwent a medical procedure earlier in the day. He will not be with us this evening. He's okay, but he's just not quite feeling up to being here this evening. Also on Monday, there will be a Memorial Day program at the Veterans Memorial at Lake Willistine. That will be at 10 a.m. That concludes my announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Neri. We'll move on to approval of the minutes. Commissioners, you have the April minutes in front of you, and they've been provided previously. Do any commissioners have any additions or revisions to be made? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Having no public comments on non-agenda items, I'll move on to open the public hearing. Having no old business, we'll go straight to new business. Item number 1, the proposed amendment to the Maumelle Master Land Use Plan from institutional to special use residential. Mr. Neri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to make comments on both items 1 and 2. Of course, they'll be voted on separately. Basically, this is a request to rezone several acres of PCD property, Planned Commercial District, to PRD, Planned Residential District. Lauren, give me the shot from the screenshot. It's this property here. You can see the staff analysis that I have in your packets for the rezoning itself, and you can see some of the rationale that I used. Basically, in speaking with Judy Keller, the Director of Economic Development, some of the Baptist Health personnel, and my own experience, there have been no commercial or retail hits on this property in at least 16 years, and probably closer to 20. The reasoning for that is pretty obvious if you're familiar with this property. It's not visible to anybody. It's certainly not visible to Maumelle Boulevard. It's hardly visible to Club Manor itself, and doesn't get any traffic. Approximately 15 years ago, this property here that is now PRD was actually Zone C2, Town Center, and came to the Planning Commission for the very same reasons that Applicant is here this evening. No commercial hits on that property. It was actually rezoned PRD with a due pass recommendation from the Planning Commission to the City Council that ultimately passed that. So during that interim, I took lunch 5 days in a row, drove my vehicle over there, parked, and ate my lunch, read the paper, and I just watched for traffic. There wasn't any. Nobody drove over there. So if, in fact, this was passed on to the City Council, who then by ordinance rezoned this property to PRD, it would actually be home then to 60 to 65 smaller single-family detached units built by Mr. Darrell Brock. Mr. Brock is also the developer of the chalets at Country Club, who is in a contingent agreement with the applicant that if the zoning passed, he would actually purchase that property. Though I have not personally seen one of Mr. Brock's homes, I'm told by those that have that they are quite nice and built very, very well. There's also a couple of other things that come into play. The families that would move there would spend monies in Maumelle. How much money? I don't know. Where they would spend it, I'm not sure. But I'm pretty positive they're going to be spending some money somewhere in Maumelle. Those that have children would be sending them to the charter school or to public schools in Maumelle. The state would issue a stipend for each of those children that goes to a Maumelle school. In fact, if you had an enlarged residential base there, it could help develop some of the Club Manor property that we have now. If you drive up and down Club Manor and into town center, you can see vacant lease spaces everywhere. Not saying that that would happen, but I think it would enhance those chances. Mr. Brock also intends to leave, I believe, 1 3/4 acres of this actually PCD or commercial. That could actually maybe contribute to attracting something like a small eatery with a built-in clientele, you might say. I have several other documents from some of my contemporaries also supporting a change to residential. And as I've told you all on the commission many times, it's my charge in these analyses to see what I think is the best use of this property. It's had about 20 years to prove that the best use of this property is commercial, and it hasn't done it. Therefore, it's my opinion that the best use of this property is residential. If you look in the town center section of the strategic plan, Maumelle Forward, this area was actually slated to be a mixed-use area, institutional, commercial, retail, as well as residential. Staff is going to recommend for a due pass recommendation of the Maumelle City Council. In this case, it's in relation to the master land use plan, a change from institutional to SUR, special use residential. Also in front of you have a letter of support from Ms. Alicia Gillen of the Maumelle Chamber of Commerce, who's also in the audience this evening. So is the representative of Applicant and the representative of the prospective property buyer, if you have any questions of them. Also, before we move on to that, public comment. I had 16 public comments based on the sign that staff put up and those people I talked to who walked into my office. It was 11 in favor, 4 opposed, and 1, man, I don't care. So that was the public comment.
Does the staff have any particular recommendations?
Staff's going to recommend for a due pass recommendation of the Maumelle Land Use Plan to the Maumelle City Council from institutional to special use residential.
All right, thank you, Mr. Neri. Any commissioner comments or questions of the applicant or staff?
Was there any common theme regarding those that spoke in opposition?
Absolutely. They didn't want anything there. They wanted it to remain wooded.
Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for due pass recommendation to City Council for the proposed amendment to the Maumelle Master Land Use Plan from institutional to special use residential for the Baptist Health as the applicant.
Baptist Health is the applicant.
Very good.
Second.
Pending any other comments from staff or commissioners?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 2, Mr. Neri, any further comments or recommendations?
Exact same recommendation, due pass to the Maumelle City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Neri. Any commissioner comments regarding item number 2 or questions? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Before you go there, there was something that I want clarification on. On our agenda, it says 12.9 acres.
That's incorrect.
Okay, so it should be the 13?
That's correct.
Okay. That was my only question. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Any further comments or questions from commissioners? I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion for a due pass to the city council to amendment to the Maumelle master zoning map from PCD to PRD.
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second, all those in favor please say yes.
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 Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Move on to item number 3, the proposed revised preliminary plat for phase, that would be 18 Maumelle Valley Estates. Mr. Neri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is indeed what this is. I passed on to you comments from Fire Marshal Payne, as well as Mr. Mazan Rahman, the city engineer. There's really no review for Mr. Rahman to do because the engineering plans had already been approved. As you see, Chief Payne also gave it a blessing. Mr. Brian Dale is here representing applicant if you have any comments for him. Staff is going to recommend for approval, a contingent approval based on any further commissioner comments.
Anything further, Mr. Neri?
No, sir.
Thank you. Any questions or comments by commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, in subcommittee meeting, we had talked about the 60-foot lots. Did we ever come to the conclusion of whether it's 60 foot at the street?
Building line.
It's at the building line, okay.
Correct.
All right, I didn't remember that that's what we talked about, but, okay. So every one of these now would be at the building line, 60 feet,
Correct.
okay.
Any further questions or comments?
Brian, I got a question for you.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Brian Dale with Mike Gators and Associates, 24 Rawlings Circle, Little Rock, represent the applicant, Maumelle Valley Estates LLC.
Thanks for being here, Brian. Good evening. You're going to rough grade the entire site,
Yes, sir.
so you're going to have open lots for a good piece of time. Are you going to come back over and overseed, stabilize? You know, keep the SWIP plan open for that entire period of time? Or are you going to close it out?
We have to close it out until, well, when we reach 90% stabilization and 90% conveyance of the lots, then we can close the SWIP out, but it'll be open until.
Thank you. It'll be open until that time. And yes, after we get everything graded, we're going to overseed everything and get the vegetation established.
Okay.
Any further questions of the applicant? Any further questions or comments whatsoever?
Thank you, Brian.
I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the proposed revised preliminary plat for Phase 13 Maumelle Valley Estates with Maumelle Valley LLC as applicant.
Second.
Having a motion and a second, all those in favor please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion is approved. Moving on to item number 4, the proposed preliminary plat for the Villa at River Point Phase 3. Mr. Neri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the preliminary plat for the Villas at River Point Phase 3. After 2 staff reviews, I think you also have emails from Mr. Rahman as well as Chief Payne on this. Staff comments are down to satisfy all city engineer comments in the construction phase, as well as any further commissioner comments here this evening. Staff recommends for contingent approval.
Any commissioner comments or questions?
I have a question. The question stems from the.
Name and address, please.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Eric Holloway Engineering, 200 Casey Drive.
Good evening.
Evening.
It kind of it kind of spins from the preliminary development plan, but it'll be related to the plat. It's like you've got drainage coming out of this detention pond. You make the note that there is some easement that you're going to carry south through Georgia's property.
Yes, sir.
And the question I have is that should we show that? That's a good little piece of ground you've got to go through. Have you acquired? Have they acquired the easement? Are you working on it? Is it existing?
The property manager for the McGeorge property happens to be also the owner of this development. So it's a fairly easy accomplishment to get the easement. But I will say, it's the same thing that we did in the first two phases. We have a detention pond further to the east that goes through a easement across the McGeorge property and down to an existing culvert that goes under Crystal Hill. We're going to do the same thing and go to that same ditch that we designed through the first phase and meet at the same point, which actually helps because many people may be seeing Facebook and others about the potholes along Crystal Hill. This particular area where this development is the drainage that hits that pothole and creates the one that really cavities out and is a big problem. And this will divert that drainage to a culvert instead of crossing Crystal Hill.
So that easement would be dedicated to the city?
Yes. It'll be a drainage easement across that property and would only be changed if they do a development and carry that water in some other fashion in an easement. And a replat.
Further commissioner questions of the applicant? Any other commissioner questions or comments?
Well, I still kind of have a question on that drainage easement. Is that an issue that needs to be dealt with now? It's contingent upon this?
In like phase 24, when we just came through, we had to do the same thing. The city requires that any point loading of drainage that goes, if you're crossing lands that are not immediately upon a public right of way where there's existing public facility, then you have to provide easement across those lands, and this is just consistent with what we've done in many other developments. And we do that during construction phase.
Okay.
And I can tell you the city engineer is very adamant about that being done.
And that's really what you would tie the easement down because
You have to.
That's when you design. You have to design and
file that easement right at the courthouse or some.
that's what we've done every time is file that at the courthouse.
So it's picked up whenever that property.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm good.
Further questions of the applicant? Any further commissioner comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the proposed preliminary plat for the Villa at River Point Drive Phase 3, pending contingent upon staff and engineering comments.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. All right, motion carries. Moving on to item number 5, Mr. Neri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the preliminary development plan for the Villa at River Point Phase 3. There was an issue, you may remember, in the subcommittee meeting regarding parking that has since been overcome. The comments now will be very similar to the preliminary plat, satisfy all city engineer comments, as well as any further commissioner comments here this evening. Staff will recommend for a due pass recommendation to the Maumelle City Council.
Any commissioners have any questions of staff or the applicant?
Okay, is the fire flow information that's shown, who is requiring that information be placed on the preliminary development plan? Chief?
Not me.
That's normally who does it. Typically, that's who we provide that for and have that discussion with.
Where's the location of the test performed?
This one I don't remember. I have to admit it was not.
Does CAW do that, or does Maumelle do that?
Maumelle doesn't, typically. But I admit I've gotten it from both locations. Both CAW's given me that information before as well. So I've gotten it from either, but I typically have a discussion with Chief Payne about it.
Chief's telling you that information?
He has in the past, or he's gotten it from one of his people, from tests that they have done, flow tests. But typically these days I call CAW.
Okay.
Any further questions of the applicant? Any further comments? I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion for a due pass to the city council for the proposed preliminary development plan for the Villa at River Point Drive Phase 3, contingent upon all staff and engineering comments.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 6, Mr. Neri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the landscape plan for the Villa at River Point Phase 3, and I must admit, a review I really enjoy because the landscape architect is very good, and they always do more than they have to. After 2 staff reviews, staff will recommend for approval as resubmitted.
Any commissioners have any questions of staff? Any questions of the applicant or comments? I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the proposed landscape plan for the Villa at River Point Drive, Phase 3, subject to any comments.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Moving on to item number 7, Mr. Neri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the commercial building design for the villas at River Point Phase 3. After 2 staff reviews, staff will recommend for approval as resubmitted.
Any commissioners have any questions of staff or the applicant? Do I have any commissioner comments? I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the commercial building design for the villa at River Point, pending any staff or engineering comment.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. I will now close the public hearing. Move on to City Council Liaison reports. First, I have May 7th, Commissioner Fisher.
Yes, sir. Attended that meeting, and some of it was a little bit of housekeeping. There was a third reading of Ordinance 951 to amend the Maumelle City Code. Mr. City Attorney, you can probably help me on this one. On it, I think basically what it was is more cleanup in the code than anything else. Was there any specifics?
Talk about the ordinance where we adopted the current version of the code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was just a cleanup type thing.
Correctly. So periodically, the ordinances are compiled and codified into the code, and then once that happens and we get a new update, the city council approves that new updated version.
Okay. Next item that pertained to us was third reading of Ordinance 952, amending the master land use plan. That pertained to the villas at River Point. That passed 7, 1 opposed.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fisher and City Attorney Norris. Moving on-
What? I'm not done.
You are not done. I
No.
apologize.
You got to flip to page 2.
Huh?
Page 2 was the third reading of Ordinance 953, amending the Maumelle zoning map. Again, this pertains to the villa at River Point. Again, that passed 7 with 1 opposed. And then there was a first reading of ordinance number 954, which was the adoption of the master street plan. So there'll be 2 more readings of that. Basically, that was it for what we would be concerned with.
Thank you again, Mr. Fisher. Moving on to May 21st, that was me. The only matter relating to the Planning Commission was the second reading of 954 to amend the master street plan. There will be 1 more reading of that. Moving on to council liaisons for June 4th, Commissioner Ramsey, you're up, and June 16th, it is your turn, Commissioner Green.
Commissioner, Chairman Gershner, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I want to commend the commission, not just for this month, but ever since that you all have been together as a commission and worked with me. Those of you who do not attend the subcommittee meeting for whatever reason, never fail to either call me or come by my office for a briefing in person. And I appreciate that very much, because that way you're completely informed about what the items were, what some of the issues were, and it makes you better prepared as a body when you get in here. So I want to thank you very much for that. I appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Mr. Neri. Let me express our appreciation for the work you do as well.
Thank you.
Without anything further, I will entertain a motion.
Motion adjourned, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. We are adjourned.
Get out of my way. Just to make me jealous for council meetings.
Yes, they do.
Yes, you want to hear this? You want to hear that small?
Yeah, but it's better when you just see the lights. Like any additional comments?
And then you wait. And then you've got to move on.
Preston was the most infamous for
Down by the river.
waiting until the